Eagles Entertainment.
Eagle Eye in the Sky is fueled by Gatorade, the official sports drink of the Philadelphia Eagles.
Anything that moves, I don't care who it is. Let's go. Give me everything you got. Play fast, play hard. Let's meet these boys tonight in their house. It's party time. It's party time. There we go. Touchdown!
You are listening to the Eagle Eye in the Sky podcast. Now here's your host, Fran Duffy.
That's right, of the week, and we've got more joint practice today as the Eagle Eye in the Sky podcast, fueled by Gatorade, continues. I'm Fran Duffy, and as always, I think we've got a great show for you here on episode number 347. At the top of this week's show, we've got Chalk Talk, where I chat with both Ben Fennell and Chris McPherson to discuss what we saw on the practice field today at the NovaCare Complex. Eagles, Patriots, joint practice number 2. A lot of big takeaways. I focused in on the defense today. Ben focused his attention on the offensive side of the football. A lot of news to get to, a lot of updates here from practice. A little bit shorter than yesterday's on Monday, but it was still a fun session. Plenty of takeaways. Before we get there, though, just a quick reminder. Jump on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, wherever you listen. Leave us a rating. Leave us a comment. If you've got a question, look, the Eagle season right around the corner. If you've got a question about this team, now's the time. Jump on. Leave the question in the comment box. We will answer it here in an upcoming episode. Thanks so much to everybody that has thrown us your support lately over on Apple Podcasts. Now, let's get the rest of the show rolling. I'm excited to talk about today's practice with Ben and Chris. It's time now for Chalk Talk.
Let's get down to business. It's time for Chalk Talk.
All right, well, like I said, day 2 of joint practice here between the Eagles and the Patriots, and plenty to dive into as I welcome in Chris McPherson and Ben Fennell. Guys, before we get into what we saw out on the field, let's get into some transaction news, some injury updates. C-Mac, as always, we come to you.
All right, so we have to wait a little bit. We're recording this before 4 o'clock, just for the record. So the Eagles have to get down to the 85-player limit. So those moves have not yet been announced. In terms of injuries, Devontae Smith back on the practice field again on Tuesday, but this time taking part in a limited role in team drills. So great progress as he continues to move forward. It remains to be seen whether or not he will play Thursday night against the Patriots in the preseason game. A couple other injury notes. Jake Elliott is day-to-day with an ankle injury. Derek Barnett, day-to-day with a shoulder injury. And Javon Hargrave, one of the stars of Monday's workout, he's day-to-day with an ankle injury. So those are the injury updates. A little bit of a shorter practice. They concluded around 11:20 or so this morning, so about an hour and a half out there on the field. But from an injury standpoint, the big news, the good news, Devontae Smith continuing to progress as he comes back from that knee injury.
And I was not watching the offense. So, Ben, I'm interested to get your thoughts on how Devontae looked. Just from a pure depth chart standpoint, though, nothing, no huge changes. I know, Ben, you were talking about there was some shuffling of wide receivers in terms of who was working with what, but that's a normal, progression in terms of training camp. And obviously with bodies coming in and out, coming back from injury, that's going to change some things up. But nothing of note from a pure depth chart standpoint. No Javon Hargrave, like you mentioned, C-Mac, no Derek Barnett. So we saw Josh Sweat and Hassan Ridgeway working with the starters. But outside
Correct.
of that, no huge changes there from a depth chart standpoint.
And real quick, Fran, Devontae did participate in team, participate in 7-on-7. The one note, didn't participate in 1-on-1s.
Right.
So he didn't receive a lot of targets out there on the practice field. I was hoping to see him in 1-on-1s where you're pretty sure to get a target on that rep right there, but he didn't participate in 1-on-1. So while he was out there for some periods, pretty uneventful day for Devonta Smith.
All right. Well, with that in mind, Ben, I'll bounce right back to you. Your biggest takeaway. I know, like I said, you were focusing in on the offense today after doing the defense yesterday. What did you see from Jalen Hurts and that offensive side of the football?
Yeah, I thought they were distributing the ball in a variety of different ways today, really working the tight ends in a variety of red zone sessions. They worked in the high red zone, down in the low red zone. Obviously, that emphasis on getting some points when the field shrinks, but working to the tight ends. And I thought it was a really good day for young running back Kenny Gainwell. I thought he looked pretty good out there in 7-on-7s catching the ball. He got some reps with the first team with Jalen Hurts throwing the ball out there. Some clever plays designing to get him open in later periods with the second team. He just seems like a guy that's really starting to stack some practices, playing more confident and getting some opportunities with the big guys in that first team, C-Mac.
Interesting about Gainwell, Nick Sirianni spoke to the media before practice, and he was asked about Gainwell's development, and he said Gainwell's come along very nicely and that he is showing everything that we envisioned him doing for us on this football team. That's the biggest compliment you can say, because you watch a guy on tape and you say, okay, how is he going to fit into our offense? You want to be able to see that transpire and that transition take place here, Ben.
And down in that red zone, when the field shrinks and that ball has to come out quick, coverage is tighter, windows are smaller. We saw a lot of highlight grabs today. Whether it was the tight ends, the back of the end zone, and some tight window throws, whether it's J.J. Arcega-Whiteside high pointing over somebody, Tyree Jackson had a big play over somebody in the back of the end zone. A lot of highlight grabs, which you're going to get in red zone periods of the NFL. It's dog-eat-dog world out there, and it's going to be tight coverage. Someone's going to have to make a play on the ball. I thought we saw a lot of variety of really spectacular catches out there, which was just fun to see and entertaining to be right there on the sideline.
I mean, including what may have been the most spectacular catch in all of training camp. I was down there. I was glad you mentioned Gainwell, because I was down there for individual periods in the end zone, and they were doing routes on air. So I was watching the running backs, receivers, tight ends. Gainwell made this sick one-handed catch, out away from his body in routes on air, and that got some of the fans excited that were down in that area of the field. But right after that, they did red zone one-on-ones, Eagles receivers against the New England defensive backs. And just watching those guys work, it was a really spirited session, and there was jawing on back and forth. Guys were getting after it, really good energy. Jalen Reagor, Quez Watkins going back and forth with guys like Jalen Mills and J.C. Jackson. It was a really fun session. And it was, I think, halfway, 2/3 of the way through the drill. Jalen Reagor's matched up against the corner, Michael Jackson from New England, and it was a fade down in the red zone, back right pylon. He was in the air for a good 17 seconds, goes up with his right hand and plucks the ball. Outstanding, ridiculous one-handed catch. Very, very similar to the catch he made over Darius Slay in red zone one-on-ones last week. I actually like this one even a little bit more. This one was just a ridiculous catch. The body control, the hand-eye coordination, the ability to finish. I thought it was a really, really good rep. And I charted all the reps as they were happening. Jalen had a couple of wins today. He had a really nice slant route against J.C. Jackson for a touchdown down on the goal line as well. So he showed off his ability to separate. I thought there were some really, really good reps down there. And Quez Watkins as well had some really nice routes. He separated from Jalen Mills on a corner. He got J.C. Jackson completely turned around on a slant route. So it's just great watching these young receivers continue to develop and continue to work on the little things. And I mentioned I was down there for the routes on air. Ben, you talked about this almost every day, watching the receivers in Indy. Nick Sirianni was on those guys, his attention to detail in these sessions and just harping on the little things and how to pace their feet and make sure you rip out of a route and, not rounding off any breaks. It shows up with how these guys have performed in these one-on-one drills and in team sessions.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of the young guys stepping up, which is really great to see, whether it's, the Travis Fulghams of the world or, Quez Watkins really emerging as a day 3 second-year player. There's a bunch of guys on the back end that you're really starting to see the details. Even a guy like Jamon Osborne, just watching him in one-on-ones, had a bunch of really good releases and, gives opposing defensive backs trouble. When you start to see the back end of the roster, performing and producing, that's usually a good sign about the top end of that position group. Because competition at the bottom is going to make that top better. And you're starting to see a really good group of receivers here with the Eagles.
Osman's actually gotten better, I feel like, since the start of camp, especially in terms of his ability to create some separation. He's gotten a lot sharper.
And a guy that had opted out of 2020 and probably a little rusty around the edges there and how they used him at Texas A&M. And, just taking a step back, too. It was fun watching, Devontae Smith, Jalen Reagor, Quez Watkins all break the huddle together. I mean, that's a lot of speed out there. They may not have the size that some coordinators may want, but that is a fast group. And I hate to reflect back to the Macklin, Deshaun, Jason Avant days. Well, those guys didn't have a lot of size either, but they had speed, and speed kills out here. And it's just going to be really fun to see the different ways Nick Sirianni uses all those weapons.
C-Mac, what was your big takeaway from today?
I have a couple here. First, we talk about the speed and the way that the guys are flying on the offensive side of the football. How about on the defensive side of the football? A lot of 7-on-7 work, especially in the red zone. And I felt the Patriots quarterbacks, whether it was Cam Newton, whether it was Mac Jones, had to settle for a lot of checkdowns. Okay. I thought the linebackers, Eric Wilson, nearly had another interception today. Alex Singleton, if it wasn't for Jalen Reagor's one-handed grab, I think would have had the play of the day with a diving interception. A nice performance by him. but both of those guys flying around the ball, the defensive backs love the coaching that they're getting, making things tough on the wide receivers, not allowing a lot of separation. I just think overall, this defensive backfield has done a great job of just buzzing around and making life difficult. And one guy I'll point out here, Darius Slay, have thoroughly enjoyed watching his one-on-one work against Nelson Aguilar. Aguilar wins some battles, Slay gets some as well. But still has tremendous footwork. I feel like if it's going to be one route, Slay's going to be all over it. It's wide receiver DB one-on-ones that there are times where the wide receiver gets to dance a lot and doesn't do something you'll see in a game situation. And it's like, okay, it's difficult for the defensive back to come out with the win. So I still think he has that elite quickness. Steve Nelson, there was a play in a team period where you're going to note that Patrick Johnson nearly came up with the interception. But I think it was Cam Newton. His first read was to go to the left side, and Steve Nelson had the man all covered up and forced Newton to go away to the other side. So really like the competitiveness, like some of the playmaking ability we're seeing on the back end of this defense. So a lot of speed and pizzazz, obviously with the wide receiver group here. But I think this back seven has been flying around here for the Eagles, and we saw it again here on Tuesday.
Yeah, I mean, Ben, you talked yesterday about how dominant that defensive front was. And I said yesterday, I was like, I'm excited to watch that defensive front going up against that Patriots offensive line, which, they've got good players. They're paying Trent Brown a ton of money. Isaiah Wynn, first-round pick. Onwenu, the left guard, was a really impressive rookie last year. Obviously, David Andrews, a really respected veteran. Shaq Mason has been really good for a long time. So this starting offensive line for New England going up against this Eagles defensive front, I was really excited to watch them today. Unfortunately, we only got it for one period. It was that first team period, that first 11-on-11 action. Now, the Eagles held up their end of the bargain because that first team period, you had a Fletcher Cox run stuff on the first play. You had a Josh Sweat sack and then a quick tackle and a run play soon afterwards. Brandon Graham was right at the line of scrimmage on another one. So that defensive front, just, unblockable at times when you look at that first group and even the second group going up against the twos from New England just have been so good over these 2 days, which has been really good to see. And then C-Mac, your point was right on about the linebackers flying around. Singleton had the interception in that second 7-on-7 session. TJ Edwards had a pick in the end zone in the first 7-on-7 session. And I feel like we talk about him doing that every other week in training camp since he's been in the NFL. He's always around the football, TJ Edwards. But to me, when I look at that defensive line, there was one point in practice. They, like you said, C-Mac, it was a shorter session today, right? So they went a full 2 hours yesterday. This one about an hour and 20 minutes. So there were fewer team sessions. Today, you had the full 11-on-11 to start. Then the defense had 2 red zone sessions, and then they got together for a full team, low red zone, situation, right? So I look over in the second 7-on-7. I'm like, oh, they're doing 7-on-7 again. But then I look over to your field, Ben, where the offense is working. Those guys are going 11-on-11. And I'm like, that's weird. Usually they're doing the same drill on both fields. Then I look over, the Eagles defensive line's all working on the opposite field. I'm like, oh, the Patriots offense, they just want to make sure that defensive line is as far away from their quarterbacks as possible. Now they can run a drill correctly with 7-on-7. It worked out well for them. They were able to get some passes off in that second 7-on-7 period. But this defensive front has just been really, really fun to watch over these last couple of days, man.
And if the Patriots coaches saw something they maybe didn't like from their guys yesterday, that's what these practices are all about. Controlled environments, real competition in controlled environments. So that means you get to work on what you want to work on. You get to ask your opponent, hey, we need to work on this. Hit us with that. So the reasoning for why they may participate in 11-on-11s or 7-on-7s or see more of one scheme versus another scheme, it's all about getting better out here and having that controlled environment. Obviously, it's not a game where it's unpredictable and it's a little bit more of a true gamesmanship. It's still practice out here, but it is real life competition in a controlled setting. So I think doing certain things like that to cater to what your team needs is all about these joint practices.
And that's what we talked about that last week, right? Leading into these practices, where what is the goal of this versus a preseason game? What do you get out of it? And Nick Sirianni talked about that before practice today at his press conference. He said, look, we can do a little bit more in these practices in high leverage reps because only the Patriots get this film. And we talked about that last week. You could do more things schematically to get ready for the regular season against a new opponent because not all 32 teams get this film. And so you certainly have that advantage. And, the Eagles, hoping to take advantage of that with some good quality reps on both sides of the football. The play of the day, I guess, look, we tried to hone this in each and every week. Today, that Jalen Reagor catch, I was glad that I was down there for that one. Just a ridiculous grab. Any of you guys have any other candidates here for the play that stood out most to you?
Yeah, real quick, in the 7-on-7 session, I thought Hurts had a lovely back-to-back sequence, finding his tight ends in the red zone. He fired a corner route to Zach Ertz with Kyle Duggar right on his back, just out of his reach. And then the very next play, the other side of the field, kind of a corner stop. It looked like Dallas Goedert ran like a deep curl, or kind of one of those 7 stops we see a lot, with Juwan Williams, that big corner out of Vanderbilt, right on his back. Both balls came out decisively, 100 miles an hour, and right on the receiver's hands, or in this case, the tight end's hands. It just made me kind of look around. It's like, whoa, where did those lasers come from? But that type of decisiveness and accuracy, and then obviously the big guys finishing the play on the other end, really good 2-play sequence, and a really strong period from Hurts.
I thought it was a little bit of an inconsistent start to Jalen Hurts for training camp. Those first few days, there were some rough patches there, but these last 5, 6, 7 practices, you throw in the game last Thursday night, he's looked good this last week and change, which is a really good sign.
Yeah, and one last thing, Fran, I just want to give a little kudos. There's some deep position groups where you just want to crave to see those back end guys that there may not be enough reps to go around. But as we get into the dog days of camp, there's some position groups that are a little light. A guy like Jordan Mailata, he's out there with the 1s as left tackle. I got news for you. He played with the 2s at left tackle in a lot of periods as well. And then big Brett Toth came in as well, like he normally does with the 3s, did a little bit of guard and 1-on-1s. But a guy like Jordan Mailata, tons of reps out here. And I got news for you. When you get those opponents in on the practice field, it's not all pretty. Yep. He's taking his lumps, but he's out here a lot and he's getting better. And I think these reps are really going to benefit him heading into the season. And when some guys go down, somebody needs to fill those reps. So like today, Derek Barnett, wasn't out there. That meant some more reps for Josh Sweat and, Teron Jackson and some of those young guys. So I love seeing who fills those voids as well.
I was glad that you just mentioned Josh Sweat, because I was thinking about him on the practice field today. It was that 11-on-11 drill. And I was just thinking how he had that breakout season last year. And I'm thinking okay, who are the guys that could take that next step here this fall? Who's a guy that could be out for a breakout or just for a big year that maybe people aren't necessarily expecting? And my eyes immediately went to number 49, Alex Singleton. He had that diving interception in the 7-on-7 drill. I just think of this defensive scheme. We hear Brandon Graham talk about the different fronts and how it kind of reminds him of some of the things they did under Bill Davis previously, right? In terms of the reading and the 2-gapping up front. And I think when you look at that, you're like, all right, well, those kinds of schemes, they kind of leave the linebackers clean and free to roam, right? They're not dealing with as much contact, offensive linemen up in their face right away. So I think I look at Singleton and then just think back to the other night. How often was it like, oh, there's Singleton again. There's Singleton again. He had 7 tackles. He played in 20 snaps. So I just look at Singleton as man, this guy could rack up easily triple-digit tackles. But we're talking if he plays all 17 games and if he's a starter, we'll see how that all shakes out. He could have 150 tackles this year. He has just been that active in practice.
Yeah,
I was just going to say, I was trying to look up Alex Singleton led the team in tackles last season. It was the most since D'Amico Ryans, going back to the Bill Davis days. And I'm trying to think, there was one year where D'Amico Ryans had 160 tackles or something absolutely absurd. I'm trying to find it now, but it's not come up. I'll see if I can find it by the end of the episode. But certainly with the way this defense is built and the way he has a nose for the football and flies around, and we saw it in the preseason game on Thursday. He's wasted no time coming off that COVID list to make an impact on this defense alongside Eric Wilson.
C-Mac, is there a guy that kind of comes to mind for you as someone who could take a big step here?
Yeah, real quick. D'Amico Ryans, 2013, 177 tackles. And again, 16-game schedule. So that's ridiculous. So, and we got the extra game this year. We've talked a lot about him. He made the play of the day. He's made 2 of the biggest highlight reel grabs so far in camp. I'm going to go to Jalen Reagor. And you were talking about the one-on-ones. One-on-ones on Monday, Nick Sirianni said that Reagor's performance was special and that you're finally seeing that raw athleticism combined with technique, and it's starting to all come together. And you guys talked about how detailed Sirianni is while watching the wide receivers. Sirianni was explaining the ways that he's breaking down the cornerbacks and he has a plan and he's putting all the tools together. I think between his comfort with the scheme, with the versatility that he can present because of his body build, because he's an explosive athlete, but he's also available to help you in the run game or on screens. I think he'll be utilized in that way. I think the coaches can have carve out a huge role for him. He can also help as a returner. I'm going to go with the 2020 first round pick, Jalen Reagor, as my breakout candidate for this team. And obviously he'll have a lot of help with Devontae Smith, alongside you still have Greg Ward, Travis Fulgham, a lot other receivers to help out here. But to me, I think Jalen Reagor is poised and is in the right environment for a breakout campaign here.
I'm excited to see him in year 2 with this new system, with this new staff. It's going to be a lot of fun watching him and the rest of these young receivers continue to develop. Well, guys, we will be back on Saturday. Obviously, the Eagles play a preseason game Thursday night here at Lincoln Financial Field against the New England Patriots. We'll get round 3 after seeing 2 days worth of action here on the practice field. Excited for that. We'll be back to break it down after Saturday's practice this weekend. So make sure you're tuned in right here on the Eagle Eye in the Sky podcast. C-Mac, Ben, we'll talk to you later this weekend. Before we keep rolling with the show, I wanted to take a quick break to remind you about the Eagles' second and final open practice that is open at Lincoln Financial Field August 22nd. It's a Sunday evening. You can get down, watch the Eagles up live and in close, in person. It was a great night when the Eagles had that open practice a couple Sundays ago. Now is the time. You could jump online, get tickets. They're only $10. All proceeds benefit the Eagles Autism Foundation. It's a great cause. Look, it's a great night, and it's a great opportunity to go and see this team up close in person. If you want to see Jalen Hurts, you want to see Zach Ertz and Dallas Goedert on offense, obviously Devontae Smith and Jalen Reagor at wide receiver. You go to the defensive side and Fletcher Cox and Brandon Graham, Darius Slay, everybody on the defensive side. It's great to be able to see all these guys work up close in person. If you want to go down low to the field level, or you can go up high like me, watch from up high in the sky, get a sense of all the different schemes that the team is running on both sides of the football. Now is the time. Jump on, get your tickets for the Eagles' upcoming open practice Sunday, August 22nd. Be there. It's going to be a great time for fans of all ages. I know my family will be there. It's always a lot of fun. Go check out the Eagles' open practice. Again, all proceeds go to the Eagles Autism Foundation. Well, great stuff there from both Ben and Chris. Thanks so much to both of you guys. Outstanding coverage once again from the practice fields at the NovaCare Complex. A ton to break down over these last couple days. We will talk about Thursday night's game, Eagles, Patriots. We will talk about that on Saturday. We'll be back right here on the Eagle Eye in the Sky podcast, fueled by Gatorade for everybody here at the NovaCare Complex. I am Fran Duffy. We'll talk to you later this week.
Hi, Eagles fans. I'm Connor Barwin, and I'm here to tell you about the Eagles Autism Challenge presented by Lincoln Financial Group. This year's event will take place on Saturday, August 21st, and we can't wait to see all of you back at Lincoln Financial Field live and in person. Register today to walk, run, or ride. In addition to making a transformational impact on the autism community, you'll also receive a complimentary ticket to our public practice on Sunday, August 22nd. Register today at eaglesautismchallenge.org, and I'll see you there.